always feel that I should do something along the lines of do 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 do. Oh, you're not Ingrid Nixon. What the heck? I thought I fixed that. It's the wrong time as well. Let's just not use that banner. Ladies and gentlemen, all four of you who are here right now, thank you so much for joining the show. Please put in the comments where you're from and who you are, and if you have any questions or anything like that, throw those at us, because we love to answer. Well, I do. I don't know about Pete. This is Pete Abdalla, unless I move him over here, in which case this is Pete Abdalla. And Pete is he's a super nice guy. He's a wonderful guy. I met him for the first time last January, which feels like a million years ago at this particular point, at the Florida Storytelling Festival, when Mo Reynolds, myself, Pete, and Jeff Doyle, and Diane Macklin were all performing together at the Florida Storytelling Festival, and it was one of my favorite ever times that I've been performing. The cohort of this group was absolutely brilliant, and the camaraderie between the five of us was superb. Jane Dorfman, I don't know if you know her, Pete. She says hi from Maryland. We've also got Beth Perry in Virginia. Hi Beth, it's nice to have you here. Megan Wells is in Chicago. Tony Toledo, good friend of mine, good to meet ya. I think you and Tony would get on like a house on fire if Tony let you get a word in edgewise. We have, he's a talker. Must be a nice guy. Rachel, he is a super nice guy. Mike Reese, he's Uncle Mike, so he was a friend of the family for a long time. So it's good to have you here, Mike. It's great to see you. And Kristen Peramonte from Allentown, Pennsylvania. So we got all these wonderful people here who've tuned in just to see you, Pete, because they've seen enough of me already.
They thought it was going to be Ingrid again, I think.
Oh, maybe.
By the way, I have a bone to pick with you.
Oh, geez, already? Already? It's 2 minutes after 1.
Ingrid and you were talking about the great mountains in New Hampshire and Alaska. You did not say a word about Florida. And you had just been in Mount Dora.
Yes. How many sea feet high is it? 3, 4?
Well, if you go on the overpass that leaves Mount Dora over Route 46, you can see Miami.
Wow.
That's how flat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, but there is a hill in Mount Dora, or a gentle incline.
Yeah, but you got to pay $1 to go on that tour.
It's true. So how long have you lived in Florida for, Pete?
The company that I work for moved over 600 families from Pittsburgh and Philadelphia to our new headquarters in Orlando 38 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a shock to the system. But it only took one winter for me to fall in love with Florida.
Yeah.
and you know, my wife is
bet.
a botanist and biologist, and we're both birders. So here was a whole new area for us to explore, and it was wonderful. We missed our kids and we missed the family, but you know, it was a good time for us to go ahead and see what else there was for us to explore. And we've been here 38 years.
Wow. That's almost half a lifetime.
Yeah, well, when you're 85, that's not quite true, but.
So, actually, Megan Wells. Oh, so people are asking if you could be a bit louder. So I just turned you up.
Okay.
So I don't know. I did put a note in there saying, is that better? So can people hear Pete a little better now because I turned him up a bit more?
I mean, I certainly want you to hear me because I have some gems.
He does, but
Don't want to miss.
you don't. But there's a caveat to this, because before we got on with the show, before we started the show, Pete and I were having a little chat, and he said that he doesn't want to bore everyone. So there's a story that he wants to tell for schools to start with, and so it sounds the same. All right, let me turn it up a bit more. Hang on. Edit mic settings. All right, I'm gonna put him on full volume now. So Pete, say something.
Well, before we get into the stories, I'd really like to talk a little bit about being in the schools and what I do and the things that work and how the kids react and experiences I've had. Is that any better with the sound?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It takes a little while for Pete. Oh yeah, Jane says that's better. Great, excellent. So I've turned Pete all the way up. But Pete did say that if he or anybody else starts to nod off, then to say boo or to shout. So if I suddenly say boo, it means that, you know, Pete's getting a bit boring maybe, or he's just droning on about something, and we want to wake everybody up again. And if Pete starts to nod off, because he said he might, if I notice his eyes starting to close because I'm going on too much about nothing at all, then it's again to wake Pete up, right? But very quickly before you start, I got a surprise for you because Mo's here.
Miss Mo! How are you, Miss Mo?
I'm so good. How are you, Pete?
Have you been able to step outside or is it still frozen shut?
Oh, it's actually gorgeous here. This weather is crazy. We have sunny. I just went on a 45-minute walk. It's sunny. It's like a high of 55, which is
Whoa.
very balmy for us.
That's what it is here.
What is it? Oh, I'm so sorry, Simon.
A bit blooming chilly.
Dang it. Yeah.
So I invited Mo to pop in and say hi because we loved you so much, and I wanted to share that love because it was wonderful being in your neighborhood and being part of a show that with people that absolutely adore you, Pete.
I know. Pete was
You guys
he was a legend.
Truly the highlights of the one highlight that happened in 2020. It was just wonderful, and a lot of times if I'd start to go to a dark place during this past year, I'd just think about the good times we had.
Yeah.
And
It really was so special.
it was special.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
It was such a great, I came home on such this high, and it was just like, oh my gosh, what an amazing group of storytellers. And I just thought it was such a special array of story styles. I think that's something that made it so interesting, is we just had such a wide range of personalities, but everybody just complimented and supported each other. And it was so fun. And Pete, you just, every time you took the stage, you just killed me.
Oh,
You're so funny. You're so funny.
Yeah.
I think
So
we all,
witty.
For me, it was Pete's wit.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's so dry. I mean, I put in the poster as dry as a martini, and it really is. And you know, I miss that. You know, the English humor is quite dry. I mean, mine isn't, but I do love dry, sensitive humor. And when you were up on the stage, oh my gosh, I was crying so hard. I was enjoying myself. It was excellent. Is that Damon making a noise there in the background?
Damon's in the background. Damon, we're on with Simon and Pete. Hey. He's all online now, basically, with his clients as a therapist. COVID made that happen, and then it sort of became just a good practice. So he found a lot of success with it. So he does a session, then he comes down and hangs out, and he goes back up. It's really nice.
Well, that's cool. And I do want to share something very quickly with you, if I can find it very quickly.
It's hanging on the closet door. It depends on where you're going.
Oh, Diane said, I can't find the email.
If you're going on the road, yes. If you're just going up there.
I'm going to mute Mo because she's being too noisy. But but Diane can't make it today, but she said that she wanted to send her love and peace and grace to you. So Jeff might join us later.
Well, you know,
Sorry.
it was a great group and we had so much fun. And I really don't think we minded carrying Jeff the way we needed to.
I know.
Yeah, he was a bit of a slacker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't leave this room. But
That's right. That's just between the three of us.
He loved shoveling that cave.
Mo, I'm going to take you out.
Okay.
And Pete and I are going to
That's
but I
great.
just wanted to. But thanks for popping in and saying hi. That was
Oh,
excellent.
So good to see you, Pete. Good to see you too, Simon.
See you.
Thanks.
See you.
Bye,
Bye.
you guys. Have a great chat.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, there we go.
That
Whew,
was great.
she's gone.
That was great to see her.
I thought you might like that. So talk about schools, because you love doing schoolwork, I've been told.
Yeah, well, now, of course, I missed it for about
Yeah.
a year. In fact, yesterday I got a text from one of the teachers that I'm actually really friends with. She stopped by the other day. She's had her shots, and we social distance on our back porch. But I said, any chance I can get in before the end of the year? And she texted yesterday and said, no, only essential workers are allowed in the school.
Wow.
I did love going. Last year, I was down to just 3 classes, 2 third grade classes in one school and another third grade class in the second school. And I like to keep the same classes because you get to know the kids and work with them. And I'm really doing it to encourage reading. And if they finally get the message by the end of the year, it makes me feel good. But one of the things I do, the very first time I'm with a new class, whatever grade it is, and I've done this from kindergarten through 8th grade, I always tell the magic pot, which, you know, it's the old story of the woodsman finds a magic pot, anything that goes in it doubles, and then he drags it home and puts a few coins he has and they double, which gives me a chance to ask the kids how many do they have now. But then during the story, the reason I tell that is at the end of the story, I tell them, well, we'd all put in treasure or money or gold, but besides that, what would you put in? And you get some really funny answers. And my grandson, my namesake, at the time was a real little guy. When I told him the story, he thought for a minute and he said, Poppy, I would put myself in. And then send the new kid to school and I'd stay home and play. But he's really competitive. And he thought about it for a while and he said, but then he'll come home and say he's smarter than me. I'm not sure what I do. And by the way, this young boy grew up, graduated from Penn State with 2 degrees, degree in medical engineering and mechanical engineering. So
Oh
he
my
is
gosh.
competitive and he is good. But one of the funniest things that happened is while I'm telling the story, and in the story the woodsman and his wife have so many coins and they're dancing around the pot, enjoying it, and the wife slips on the coins, falls into the pot.
Oh.
2 wives. And the 8th grade boy sitting in front of me looks up and goes, bummer. I hope I don't get invited to his home. I don't think it's a place I want to be.
Oh
But
my
you just
gosh.
get all kinds of interest. You know, usually they'll say, oh, I want to put my PlayStation so in. I say, oh, is that so your brother or sister can play with it? Well, no. You can play 2 at one time? Well, no. I'm not sure. Why do you want? You know, they try to figure out why do I want 2 when I've got 1.
Yeah.
But the thing that tore me up one time was I was in a very poor school area in that school. I knew the kids were having a hard time, and I told the story and asked what they put in, and this one little kindergarten girl looked up and said, "Food." And
Oh my
man,
gosh.
it tore me up.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to cry.
Yeah.
So I just asked her, what food? And she said, hot dogs, of course. So we got to talk for a while, but I thought, man, sometimes you just don't know.
You don't. I work with an organization called CLIF, the Children's Literacy Foundation. I know that there are similar programs across the country. And what we did, up until 2020, is they would ship books to a school or to a library or community place, venue, and then they would send myself or one of 56 other presenters, and I would go and tell stories, and then at the end we would give these books away. And these are all brand new books, and the board has a committee that chooses the books, so they're really for New Hampshire and Vermont, it's a pretty diverse range of books, and it goes from board books for preschool kids all the way up to I think it's 6th, 7th grade, and there's some pretty high level reading books there. And there are some communities that I've been to like multiple years, and these kids said, well, when do we have to bring the books back? And I was like, you don't. And they're like, we don't. And it's like, no. Well, what are we going to do with them then? And it's like, you're going to keep them in your home. You're going to start a bookshelf, or you're going to keep them under your pillow. You can pull it out whenever you want, right? And it's like, well, I don't have a book in my house. And it's like, that's all right. And it breaks my heart hearing this, but also it's like, I'm giving them their first ever book. It's, So, this, you see these books behind me. I mean, our house is filled with books, and to go to an area and hear kids say, we don't have any books in our house.
By the way,
It's
I usually
heartbreaking.
in front of my extensive library, but somebody borrowed both books. So I couldn't do it. But I had a similar program. Screen Actors Guild used to provide us with new books for kids, again, same as you, kindergarten to 8th grade. And kids just loved it. And there's nothing like it towards the end of the year when you've been working with these kids and a child comes up to you and says, let me tell you what I'm reading.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Got it. It's worth it. It's worth the work you put in. But anyway, those are great programs. To give the kids some books.
Yeah. So Papa Joe Gaudette, who you may or may not have met, he travels all over the place. He said that we are essential workers, and I tend to agree with him. And the teachers in New Hampshire, they're going to start getting their jabs, their shots very soon. And Kristen said, loved how your namesake debated with himself about the potential pitfalls of duplicating himself. It's so good. One of the things I thought is that they can alternate days, right? So it's like one day they go play and one day they go work, right?
Well, he was only about 4 or 5 at the time, so he didn't have time to think.
There you go. You should have suggested it though. And Kristen again, she says, my heart hears yours. Very, very serious items are often placed in the pot and they can be deeply illuminating. It's true. It's true. And the beauty of having books, totally agree with that. And then Tom Davis, who, if you've ever been to Stone Soup, that he and his partner there, I think Pete won our Liars contest. Oh, so you have been there?
Yep.
Nice.
I was there a couple of years. In fact, I saw Jeff there.
So we must have been there at the same time. Oh, maybe it was the year before that I was there.
No, you weren't there. I mean, you weren't. I was there the same year Jeff was there. I believe he entered the Liars contest. I felt sorry for him, but...
Well, he's so truthful and trustworthy. It's hard to win a Liars competition for him.
Right. Mm. Leave that stand on your head.
Yes. I was just being nice to Jeff in case he shows up.
By the way, getting back to the storytelling festival, I thought Joel Ying and his staff, Louise
Oh
O'Leary
yeah.
and Jerry Smith, did a fantastic job this year. As you well know,
Yeah.
doing this virtually and doing
Yeah,
it
that
3 days in a row with tellers from all over the country at different times and having each one come on time with the right sound and the right picture. I thought that was incredible. They did just a wonderful job.
I know. So were you shown this year? Did
No,
you
no,
perform
no.
at all? Okay, all
no.
right.
Just as a listener. In fact, I saw you introduce.
I did.
Yes, you
I did a
did.
very little bit. I did a little bit. Happy to
Yeah,
help them out. It was fun.
yeah.
It was fun. Oh, and Tom liked that he did beat Jeff. Yes. Unless that's Karen. Karen sometimes uses Tom's account, so I'm not sure who's actually speaking there. So I reached out to a couple of people, actually, so I'll backpedal a bit. So before we actually went to Florida, January of last year, a lot of people that, when they heard that I was going down there, they said, "Oh, is Pete going to be there as well?" I was like, "Yeah, he's one of the features," and I'd never heard of him. And they're like, "Oh, you're going to love Pete. He's such a nice guy." Everybody had so many wonderful comments about you. And I reached out to a couple of your community members and asked about you. And one of the things that I loved to hear was that your absolute passion for your family and your grandkids,
Yeah.
and that you are quite an inspiration to a lot of that community about you being
Well,
such a good husband and dad and
a
grandfather.
couple of Christmases ago, my grandkids said, "We don't know what to give you." I said, "Here's what Rusty and I would like." Rusty's my wife, for those that don't know it. I said, "Here's what we would really like. Once a month, for just 2, 3, 4 minutes, FaceTime us so we can see what you look like. Tell us what you're doing. It only takes a couple of minutes. I know you're all busy. Most of them were in college. Some had graduated already." I said, "Just give us those couple of minutes once a month." And the kids were really good to do that. And my son and daughter, they call, not FaceTime, but call because they're usually driving someplace, call us just about every single day. So
That's nice.
yeah, we do stay very close, and that's why I can't wait for everybody to get their damn second shot so we can fly up there and see them and hold them and hug them and kiss them again. Because I
Right,
do
where are they?
in the Philadelphia area, and my two brothers are in Scranton, or correct pronunciation is Scranton, but it's where I was
So,
born and raised, and that's where my tall tale was about. If you remember from the from the
I did.
festival, the
Yeah.
that was the crossing guard story. But anyway, yes, I family means so much to me, and hopefully to a lot of people.
All right. I think Scranton has been made famous by The Office because I had never heard of it before I saw the Office TV show.
And I don't think anybody in the cast was ever there, uh, but they did, of course, film the exteriors there. Uh,
Yeah.
and also, our current president was born there, so
Oh, he was? Joe
yes,
Biden was born in Scranton?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
So there'll be a statue there soon, I'm sure.
right next to mine.
There you go.
Some for the
In this-
birds, and so on.
That's right. Little teeny tiny one. That's excellent. That's excellent. And you're very close with your brothers too.
Yeah, it's proof of the insanity runs through the whole family. Uh, my brother Rich sits on his front porch every afternoon He's in his 80s also. My two brothers are twins. They're 3 years younger than I am.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
And he sits on the front porch in Scranton every day. Temperature can be 16, 18 degrees, blizzard blowing. My other brother goes over Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, steps out on the porch, dusts the snow off so he can find where to stick the cigar, and they spend an hour talking about old times. And I want to get up there and join them on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as soon as they get their shots.
Yeah.
And my one brother has his shots, but even flying these days is a little bit scary. But anyway,
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I wonder about that.
we are close.
Yeah, I have an account with American, and they keep sending me all these emails saying, "Come on, fly with us." And I'm like, I'm not sure I want to yet.
Well,
I've heard some horror stories about like the planes being jam-packed, and
yeah. Well, I
I
have
just
200,000 miles on Delta.
oh wow.
See, in my working life, I had 24 trips to China over 6 years, counting Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is not really China, but it's more like San Francisco. It was when I was going there. But
Yeah.
I got all that
That's so
miles.
cool.
Want to take Rusty first class someplace.
Yeah, right?
But it's about getting where I've
You're
been.
going to have Rusty next to you, right? You're not going to make her fly coach, are you?
I could get away with it once.
I'm not sure that's true. So you work for Siemens or something, right?
Yeah, I worked for Westinghouse when they moved the 600 families down here. It was Westinghouse Power, and then Siemens bought it. And when Siemens bought us, and they wanted somebody that had been working on the China team to come to Germany for 7 months to work with them, with their China team, because we had been very successful. And all the young guys didn't want to go because they were afraid when they came back there wouldn't be a job for them.
Oh, wow.
It was in my 60s. I said, don't throw me in that briar patch. So Rusty and I had to live in the suburb of Nuremberg for 7 months, and it was glorious.
Wow.
Absolutely loved it. We made really good friends, and such good friends that I took my son and his wife and my daughter there summer before last to meet the friends and to travel around to show them why we love living there so much. And
That's so cool.
it was, and they've come here to visit us so many times until, of course, this year. But it was another reason I had more miles on Delta. So that's why we're ready to go. But
Yeah.
great
So
times, great experiences.
Did you learn Chinese when you were over there?
No, I didn't. They brought in a teacher and they started to teach us, and it wasn't the Mandarin that we needed. And
Oh, yeah.
so,
Okay.
anyway, the answer is no, I didn't learn. But it was quite.
I was hoping to be impressed then. I was hoping that you were going to say yes, and I share all these Chinese fairy stories, and I tell them in bilingually.
Tell you the things that I did eat to get many hundreds of millions of dollars of orders over there.
I guess.
Ate scorpions with the tails still on, a giant cicada. But what I found out is all that stuff was really deep fried. So it was just crunchy. And if you didn't look in the eyes of a little critter, you could get it in and chew it, not think about what it was. And they thought you were pretty good.
Ah, dear. Is there any protein left in them after they've been deep fried that much?
I never asked. I just
Oh,
picked
dear.
myself 300 million, 400 million.
Jeez. Yes. Lisa Wilcox and I have a similar feeling. Eek. And Kristen says, me too with flying. I've got 11th billion frequent flyer miles, more or less. No idea. Well, Kristen, fly me somewhere. Send me some of those miles if you've got that many. And Papa Joe says, yes, it's a new world. Books are not the priority when we distribute culture anymore. As with storytelling, societies evolve new ways to present. However, story is still the means of transmitting culture. And though there are many ways of sharing them, storytelling can be the most effective, and it is certainly the most substantial. And I would also add the most, can be the most subversive way of teaching culture. But that's another story for another day, I think.
That's true. I did see him when he was on the Friday with Friends, by the way.
Oh, you did, Papa Joe?
It was a while back, yeah.
Yeah, he and I are good friends. I miss him. He's out in the warm weather somewhere. Not sure where he is right now. He'll probably pop a little message up and tell us in a minute.
But anyway, the stories, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that we're ready to tell stories for people that want to go into schools to learn to tell stories. Those two books are so good because the length of the story is just right. They tell you what age group. They tell you a good hint about telling the story. And I used a lot of those stories when I was first telling stories in the schools. But one of my favorite stories, and if you'll bear with me, I'll tell it to you.
Yes. Let's
Story by
I'm gonna make you full screen.
the story by John Sheska. And for those of you that are familiar with children's book, and his name is spelled Sciescka. John Sheska. Children are familiar with his Stinky Cheese Man, the true story of the Three Little Pigs, and this book, the story I'm going to tell you, I started off first just reading, helping children one-on-one in the school down the street, and we went into the resource library, and the child picked out this book, and it was Frog Prince Continued. And as we're reading it together, I thought, I like this story. I think about everybody knows the story of the Frog Prince. But do you know what happened after the princess kissed the frog? You see, the princess kissed the frog turned into a prince, and they lived happily. Well, they were kind of okay with it for a little while, but actually they were miserable. The princess. It's bad enough I had to listen to your croaking snoring all night long, but now I find this lily pad in your pocket. How come you don't go down? Let me go down by the pond anymore, where I can walk deep in the water. And so it went back and forth. And I wish you'd stop hopping all over the furniture. Why don't you go out and slay a giant or a dragon or whatever? I don't feel like slaying a giant or anything else. I'm just going up to my room with a juggeron and read. And he did. For maybe the 100th time he read, and they lived happily ever after. The end. So he stayed in the castle and drove the princess crazy. But one morning, the princess came in and she threw a fit. It's bad enough I have to listen to your croaking snoring, but now I find this lily pad in your pocket. How come I wish I'd never kissed your slimy frog lips. You were still a frog. And that's when it hit him. Still a frog. All he would have to do would be to find a witch. Oh, witch. Well, he could do it. Find a witch and have himself turned back into a frog. So he got dressed, left the castle, ran down the path, and pretty soon he came to a witch. Miss Witch, I'm the Frog Prince. Hmm, hmm. Are you looking for a princess to kiss? No, ma'am. I've been kissed. No, ma'am. I'm the Frog Prince. Well, a prince is a prince. And I can't take a chance on you kissing Sleeping Beauty before her 100 years are up. So I'm going to have to cast a nasty spell upon you. Well, the Frog Prince didn't want to wait around and find out what kind of a spell she had in mind, so he took off, ran down the path. Pretty soon he came to another witch, standing beside a kind of funny looking little house. Miss Witch, I'm the Frog Prince. Yeah, what? I'm the Frog Prince. I thought frogs were little green guys with web feet. No, ma'am. I'm the Frog Prince. I'd like to be turned back into a frog. Can you help me? Well, I can't take a chance on you helping Snow White. Oh, here, take a bite of this apple. Like I said, Frog Prince knew his fairy tales. So he knew a poisoned apple when he saw one. So he didn't even say, no, thank you. He took off and ran down the path and came again to another rather plump witch standing there. Miss Witch, I'm the frog. Oh my, if you're the frog, then I'm the king of France. No, ma'am, I'm the Frog Prince. I'd like someone to turn me back into a frog. Can you help me? Oh my, please step into my home. Well, I'll be happy to help you. As the Frog Prince walked up the slightly gummy steps, he thought this place started to look familiar. He broke off a piece of the windowsill, took a bite. It was gingerbread. Miss Witch, do you mind if I ask, do you know a Hansel and Gretel? Oh my, I'm planning on having them for dinner, so to speak. Like I said, Frog Prince knew his fairy tales. He took off and ran so fast and far, and it had gotten so dark he got off the path. He was lost, couldn't find his way, looked up ahead, and he sees another woman standing by a tree. But as he gets closer, he realizes it's a fairy godmother. Ah, Miss Witch, I'm the Frog Prince. I need your help. Well, y'all, I guess you do. I mean, you're the worst looking frog I've ever seen. No, ma'am, I'm the Frog Prince. I want to return back into a frog. Can you help me? Oh my, well, y'all never have done a frog before, but oh, what the heck. And the Frog Prince turned into a carrot. Oh my, well, like I said, I never had done the frog before. I got to get to the village, help this young girl get to a ball, so uh, uh, goodbye. Come on, y'all come back. Bye. And the Frog Prince thought, if it wasn't for bad luck, I have no luck at all. Here I am, this stupid carriage in this stupid forest. It can't get any worse than this. So when it got dark, it got scarier. And he thought, I am so stupid. I could be in that beautiful castle with the princess, and deep down I do kind of care for her, and I think deep down she kind of cares for me. We just didn't have enough time to make a go of it. I wish we could start all over again. And just as he had that thought, the clock in the village struck midnight, and he turned back into the Frog Prince. And the moon had come out. He could see the path. He ran back to the castle, threw open the door. The princess came running down. Don't worry. Why not worry? He knew she didn't care for him. So he took the princess into his arms. They kissed. And the prince and the princess turned into frogs and lived happily ever after. And that's the story of the Frog Prince continued.
Yay. Nice job.
Story,
Yeah. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm good. I gotta say, man, your Frog Prince face is fabulous.
The witch. I thought the witch scared my socks off.
When the kid, after this, I tell the story and I'm talking to the kids, they'll say, do the second prince. I said, okay, I will, but you do the second prince. Witch. You will wet your pants. They are so funny. I'm trying to make them and do the second witch. But Jeff, that Frog Prince, that's what I really look like before the surgery.
I can see the resemblance.
I wonder if I look like that while they're doing my colonoscopy. Dear, that was excellent, Pete. Thanks so much. So, Jeff, have you got anything you want to share with Pete about, what a super nice guy he is, or anything like that? Or an old curmudgeon?
Listen, I only gave you guys $10. I mean,
we'll make it stretch.
Pete is Pete, you sneak up on us as a storyteller because you're so quiet and unassuming in the corner, and then you just get up on stage and slay the audience. And,
yeah.
In the quiet sense of humor. So you're one of my favorite storytellers. Yeah.
I would agree with that. Definitely
a
favorite of mine too. Yeah. And so one of the things I like to share with everybody, when we're on the main stage in person, we're sitting to one side, or I was sitting to one side. We could actually sit wherever we wanted. But one of the things I loved about Pete was he's telling this story about this car that he used to drive, and he's just deadpan the whole time, and he's looking at this audience of, I don't know, 300 people or whatever, and he drops his head down, and I can see that he's trying not to smile, and he lifts his head back up again. It's totally deadpan, and delivers this punchline which just kills the audience. His skill set is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It was so much fun, seeing you perform fresh, not having heard you or seen any videos of you. It was marvelous. What a wonderful experience.
There are no videos of me.
Well, there's one. I did find one the other day, actually.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
There are no videos. You cut out there a second.
Yeah, he's got no videos out there.
No videos. Oh. Well, he won the Liars contest. When I was at Stone Soup, he won the Liars contest, and we didn't. And then the next year we were there, and we were trying to figure out who Pete was because nobody could remember the last name. And then I was so happy to to run into him again when we went to Florida and
Yeah.
played at the festival.
Well, tell
Car-
them the truth, because I borrowed $5 from you at Stone Soup.
That's right.
Was
I
that
had
so?
to come get it. That was the whole reason.
So Karen says you need to tell the crossing guard as well. Karen Davis, disguised as Tom. She said it will make her day.
That's kind of long.
It is kind of long. It is. So we'll skip over that one then. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate you popping in to say hi. Take care, mate.
Wonderful to see you guys.
Good to see you too. Be well. Thanks for taking time out of your day from work. Bye.
Enjoy seeing
Jeff
Jeff on TV. I enjoy seeing all you guys on TVD.
Yeah, I just on TBD. Yes, that's a fun. I tell you, that's a good cohort as well. That's a great group of people, and I absolutely love working with Ingrid and Jeff, and everyone else. Paul Strickland and Sheila. Well, we don't really work with Sheila. She just shows up. But she and I are good friends, so we hang out in other ways. We hang out in other ways, and also Anna and Norm, of course, and Antonio. Ah, dear. So you were in the Navy, because I've heard, because some of your personal stories talk about that. And before we got onto the show, you shared a picture with me, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. So
Let me
do you want to
tell
share
them before you show it. Let
okay,
me tell
all right, I'll wait.
what you're going to see is President Eisenhower had a people-to-people program. And so we were on a cruise, started in Palma de Mallorca, went to Scotland and Oslo and Sweden and Portsmouth, England. And this was before we anchored 20 miles out from, excuse me, in Sweden, in Stockholm, and we were going to go the next day the rest of the way. So we're sitting out in the middle of this body of water and with the anchor dropped. And when you see this picture, take a look at the left side of the picture, and you're going to see people standing on the ice.
Shall I share it now? So what Pete's talking about is the people right there. When Pete showed me this picture, I thought that they were in a boat, but they're actually standing on the ice, and the ship is 7 miles from land.
And you see there's a boom hanging out, and the boom is supporting a little walkway. And the walkway goes from the solid ice to the ship, because we anchored, and I'm in the wardroom having a cup of coffee. Somebody says, "Hey, you got the first watch." I said, "What am I supposed to be watching? We're anchored out here in the middle of nowhere." He says, "Captain says we're taking visitors." I said, "What?" Well, there was a village 7 miles from the ship across the ice. People drove cars, motorcycles, bicycles, skis, and walked the 7 miles to the ship, scratched "Welcome to Sweden" in the ice. The captain saw that and said, "This is a people-to-people cruise rigged for casual visitors." Well, I went on the first watch. There was a 30-foot, now 30 feet, rope ladder, Jacob's ladder, from the main deck down to the ice. A crew member was sent down on the ice, or on the platform, to help the people from the platform to start up the ladder. I had the first watch. I looked down, and the first person coming up that rope ladder is a middle-aged woman, and in the front of her winter jacket, there's the head of a small dog looking out, looking all around as she climbs that 30 feet. And I'm thinking, I would hesitate to climb that 30 feet. Here comes this woman, which immediately made me realize don't mess around with any of the Swedish women if they don't want to be messed around with. And the other thought I had was if we go into port and we're not hooked up to the pier, and I'm going to climb down that ladder to go into town, have a couple of adult beverages, ain't no way I'm going to make it up that ladder. I'll probably end up being SpongeBob bell-bottom pants. But anyway, we over the period of the cruise into those ports I mentioned, 18,000 people visited our ship.
That's a lot of people. That's an awful lot of people.
You can sink the ship.
I'm going to sink the ship. Boom. There we go. It's such a cool picture. I love old pictures. So I loved your training story that you shared at Florida. That was a riot. But how long were you in the Navy for?
Well, I was in 4 years. I found it very frustrating because I was in engineering the 4 years. So anytime you came into port, you always had equipment that you had to work on before you went out the next time. And it was always the good guys that we were saying, hey, Simon, could you stay aboard? I know you want to go home, be with your family. But could you help me out getting this pump back up and whatever? And it was a guy that was useless that you'd say, hey, yeah, go ahead, go ashore. And you couldn't reward the Simons because I couldn't give you a pay increase. Everybody had to take exams, and that's how you get your pay increase. If you wanted to go to what they call a Class A school to get a promotion, I would say, hey, Simon, could you wait for a while because I really need you. So, it was so frustrating trying to reward. You couldn't reward your good people, and I decided I'd go out.
Because you're an officer, right?
Just brought me in my Navy.
Oh, go Navy. There we go. Oops, wrong button. So you were an officer, right?
Yeah, I went to the Naval Academy, which was almost by accident because I got a sixth alternate. Sixth alternate meant the principal and the 5 alternates in front of me had to fail either the physical or the mental exam before I would get a chance to enroll. And I think I told you it was a bad year in northeastern Pennsylvania for mental giants or physical specimens. All 6 failed one or the other. And there I was.
That's funny.
And graduated 4 years later, and that's when I got my first true love.
That was cars, right?
1959, my dad gave me my 1954 fire engine red Chevy convertible. My first true love.
That's one of my dream cars, actually.
I love that car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it a Chevy Bella?
No, they just called it. There was no other name on it except just the Chevy.
Oh, okay.
It was a straight 6, and you could put up the hood, and there was almost a room for you to step inside and work on the engine because there was so little other stuff in there.
I know, right?
You lift the hoods now, and you quickly close them, saying no.
Yes, I know. I went to a show, a car show, a number of years ago with a good friend of mine who's up in Orford, New Hampshire, Rob Day, and we were looking at these old cars, like Morris Minors and the original Minis, and the engine, they're like the size of a football, or at least a beach ball, and there's all this space around it that you can work on them, and it's like they were great cars, and they didn't have all that tech in them that they have now, but they worked, and you could fix them yourself, and like you said, now you lift up a hood and it's like, I'll just spray that clean and I'll take it to the dealership and we'll have them look at it. Oh dear. Misty liked your comment, SpongeBob bell-bottom pants. Jeff said, always wonderful to see you and talk. I think he's got to go back to work now. He's got to earn the big bucks. And Papa Joe, I did put this comment up before, but Papa Joe was also in the military, and he said that it was frustrating. Seems to be a storyteller perception of the military services. I agree with that, maybe.
By the way, when we got to Portsmouth,
Mm-hmm.
the officers' club there invited us over there to their club for dinner. And of course, we had a very nice dinner, many toasts, many more toasts, and then a couple of more toasts. And then they took us to their game room. The games were all very physical. The one is for instance, you got down on all fours, and your ankles, there were 2 ropes hanging from the ceiling with a loop in them. And you put your feet through those, so that what you tried to do was keep walking and going forward, and you had a piece of chalk in your mouth, and see how far you could get upright before you made a mark, and whoever made the longest mark from the beginning point won. Well,
Okay.
of course, we were 3 sheets to the wind, had no idea what the hell we were doing. And you'd keep going, and you would go up higher and higher and higher, and you'd get so high, and you'd go to grab the chalk, and you would flip upside down and bang your head on the floor.
Oh,
And they
no.
thought it was great fun.
I bet.
And the stupid Americans, we're so competitive. We thought, I can do this. So you go back and you do it again. And they had, about 4 games like that, where the next day, I never was so sore in my entire life. Every part of my body was bruised. Every bone seemed to be ready to come through the skin. But that night I had a good time.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
My mum's partner Peter, he shared a really good joke with me about the military and all that kind of stuff, and he said that I'll make this appropriate for the children and for you, Pete. There was a guy from the Navy who was using a lavatory, and this guy from the Army came in, and he was a bit quicker than the guy from the Navy, and the guy from the Navy just starts to walk out without washing his hands, and the Army guy turned around and said, "Hey, in the Army they teach you to wash your hands after you pee." And the guy from the Navy turned around and said, "Well, in the Navy they teach us not to pee on our hands."
let me write that down.
That's a good one.
I
It's a
remember
keeper.
I was in a really, really, really old LST, landing ship tank, where they used to take the troops ashore. And they just had a trough, and somebody balled up a bunch of the toilet paper and put lighter fluid on it and lit it and let that float. That got your attention very quickly.
I bet it did.
And, that's the Navy.
Yeah, I think they've all got their little quirks and stuff. I was in the cadet force when I was a wee lad, and we had to spit and polish our boots so you could see a face in them. Basically, they had to be like mirrors. And it was, at the time, I was told that it was because you could buy this varnish that you could put over your boots to do all that work for you. And I was told that it was illegal to use that in the cadets, that you could get into trouble for using it. And there was this guy who, I was in the fifth form, and there was this sixth form kid, and I think he'd been in the sixth form for about 5 years or something like that. The guy was built like a brick shed, and wasn't the brightest light bulb in the ceiling. And he was the sergeant, like the drill sergeant, right? And I'm very flippant, and I said something underneath my breath that I shouldn't have said, probably because the guy was a ding dong. And he calls me out and gets me to walk up next to him, and I'm like standing, you know, about 3 feet from him, and he gets right up close to my face, right? So he's like nose to nose, and he's yelling at me like all drill sergeant-ish. And as I step back a little bit, my shoe knocks his boot. And the thing with this polish stuff is like if you knock it, it shatters like windows, right? And I was like, "Oh, you supposed to have that stuff on your shoes, sir?" I wasn't very popular, and that was all because my stepdad never told me that they, you know, he said you can join one of the forces, either Navy, the Army, or the Air Force, right? We didn't have Coast Guard in Worcester, and he didn't tell me that there was a drama club that I could have done instead. So I learned how to shoot, and I was a very good shooter. I was like marksman grade apparently, but it wasn't my cup of tea. I was like the one pacifist in the cadet force.
You remember me telling about when we went to the Cuban blockade, and we weren't told before we left. Kennedy hadn't made the announcement about the blockade. We left, and then the captain came on the speaker system and told us all what was going on. And I was in the wardroom after we got to sea, having a cup of coffee before I went on watch. And they announced the boarding party, muster on the fanfare. And everybody saying, "Whoa, who wants to be in the boarding party? That's got to be really scary. Who's in the boarding? I don't know." Pick up the ship's manual. There's a coxswain to run the boat, 2 deck crew, and the damage control officer. I was a damage control officer. Holy heck. Go down there, meet with the executive officer, me and the 2 deck crew and the coxswain. And we had a small lifeboat. That was called a captain's gig, outboard motor. And he said, "You're going to get in that. If we encounter cargo ship, you go over there, inspect the cargo." Of course, he left out a couple of pieces of how to do that. And he said, "The coxswain will stay in the boat. 2 deck crew will go with you up on deck. Oh, by the way, go to the armory and check out 2 M1 rifles for the deck crew and 45 for you." I said, "Sir, sailors aren't supposed to march, and we're not supposed to shoot small weapons. We like these big things, you know, behind you." He said, "That's what the manual says. Go get them." Because my recollection of the 45 was when I was a plebe and the Marines took us and showed us what the 45 was all about, and then took us out on the firing range and said, "Okay, we're going to fire, and there's your target." And I looked at the target and thought, I can spit and hit that right in the middle. Are you kidding me? Piece of cake. And so I'm lowering that 45, and he says, "Okay, just squeeze, don't jerk it, squeeze till you're right on the target," and pow! And dirt flies up about 12 feet to the left of the target. And I'm like, who's shooting now? I'm supposed to be the only one. I was the only one. And that's when I realized a 45 in my hands is only dangerous if I grab it by the barrel and hit you over the head. And then the exec said, "Oh, by the way, practice firing them." I said, "What should we shoot at?" He said, "The ocean." That night at dinner, I said, "Sir, 2 of us missed. You still got to carry those weapons." And that night I had nightmares about going over in that little boat to the big cargo ship and saying, "Drop down a rope ladder." That's not a rope ladder. Fortunately, my dreams didn't materialize. We didn't encounter any, and I didn't have to show what a non-hero I was going to be. And Khrushchev and Kennedy came to an agreement, and it all went away. But one thing I didn't know, and nobody knew till 50 years later when the documents were made public, that it was the closest we had ever come to a nuclear war. because 4 Russian submarines were told to join, to go to Cuba to help this project before Kennedy made this announcement that we knew what they were doing. They were told to go as fast as they could, secretly as they could. They were old diesel boats because their nuclear subs were having problems. Diesel boat meant just went on the surface. When your diesels are running, charge your batteries. When you submerge, you go on the batteries. You had a snorkel, bring fresh air in to help extend the life of those batteries. But when they were trying to remain undetected, they were staying underwater so long, it became so hot the closer they got to Cuba. The crews were actually in their underwear manning those submarines. They were running out of water. You can imagine what their attitudes were like. When they were discovered by the Navy, our Secretary of Defense notified Russia that we were going to drop these small percussion grenades that we would use in exercises with our submarines to say, okay, we've detected you and we know where you are. There was no communications between Moscow and these 4 submarines. We started dropping those grenades. They thought they were under attack. One thing we didn't know was each submarine had 1 nuclear-tipped torpedo.
Oh my gosh.
These guys thought they were under attack. There were 3 people on board that had to activate the system for the nuclear torpedo. The captain, the commander of the 4 boats, who was also the same rank as the captain, and a political person, like KGB person. Each had a key. There was a mechanism. He stuck in the mechanism, turned the key to activate it. Captain stuck his in, the KGB stuck his in. The 3rd commander had been on a nuclear sub where there had been a nuclear incident. He saw the sailors dying in front of him from the radiation as they tried to repair the damage done. He knew what nuclear bombs were like. He said, until we know this is really supposed to be, I will not do it. Talked the captain into surfacing, which they did. The 4 boats went back to Russia. And do you know,
Wow.
the Commodore's wife contributed to this documentary and said when her husband got back, he was vilified because he didn't want to turn the key and start a nuclear. I mean, can you believe that? People would want to do that, knowing that the result was, no harm, no foul. But
Yeah.
it's just that close. I mean, if I had known that was going on, I would have had that manual looking up conscientious objector, figuring out a way to get back to the States.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to become a Quaker.
Well, if they call me, I will too.
There you go. So Misty was saying that a lot of her family were actually ex-military, and they're also family storytellers. But she mentioned that her grandmother wasn't in the service, but she was the master storyteller in her home. I think a lot of the matriarchs are the master storytellers. And now I guess I am definitely not the military type. Yeah, okay. Then Misty added to that by saying, oh man, shining her boots. Oh, she does? Yeah, shining the boots, that was a real deal. I used to spend, so the TV show that I used to do that with, it was Top of the Pops. So I'd be watching like Top of the Pops. I guess it's like Soul Train or something like that over here. And I'd be like, rub, 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 rub,
Yeah.
rub, rub, rub,
Yeah.
rub. Oh my gosh, it was painstaking work. Yeah, I wore army boots for the longest time. Misty goes on. Yes, I did catch my drill sergeant. Sorry, I didn't see those comments until just now. And Lisa says, that's a story in the making. Yeah, right? The one about the, yes.
Yeah,
She's talking about my story. I don't think my story's in the making. That's already done.
There was a lot of really neat details in those documents that became public after 50 years. Khrushchev's son said that his father told him You see these movies about the glorious war and all that. He said, war is not glorious. Do everything you can to avoid it. And you
Yeah.
don't think of Khrushchev that way, but his
No,
son was
right.
saying he knew how bad things could have gotten. So,
Yeah, I mean that would I mean, I remember back in the 70s and 80s when there was this whole like anti-nuclear thing, and I mean, if anything had happened, that would have been the end of the world. Not just like
yes,
America and Russia, it would have been the end of the world.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
those guys in the submarine, I mean, they would have been the first ones to go. Even the
Yeah,
Russians, right?
yeah, absolutely.
It's
And yet
it's insane.
that mentality, that's just scary. That's why I
Yeah.
need to use my 200,000 miles to get someplace quickly.
I know, right? Get to one of those countries that say they don't have COVID anymore.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, by the way, one other
Yes.
thing.
We can't end on that
When my-
note. We gotta have something jovial and light to end the show
when
with, I
my-
think.
When my daughter graduated from Penn State,
Uh-huh.
she was a big James Harriet fan. So we took her to Yorkshire. Rusty
Yep.
and I took her to Yorkshire. And one of the things that happened was we're driving through the countryside. And of course, we eat much earlier than the locals. So we stopped at a pub because the pub food was good.
Oh yeah.
We sit down at the table, nobody else is in there. I said, I'm going to go get a draft. Well, I'm driving and I don't even know where we are. So, no GPS at that time. So I said, I'll just get a half pint. So I go up to the bar, and this substantial barmaid is there. And she says, a pint or a half? Well, I didn't want to imitate her half because I figured I might end up in a little puddle on the floor. And I didn't want to say a half and have her roll her eyes at me. So I did the intelligent thing. I said a pint. But I took my wife into York one time. We were staying at bed and breakfast. Dropped her off. There's no place to park. I said, I'll go around the block. 2.5 weeks later, I was reunited.
Yes, we don't have blocks.
I mean, I would love to have been at the planning meetings where the city planners laid out that city.
They were made in the 1300s. They were,
You know,
it was where the geese walked.
well, it was that. And Uncle Smitty's over here, so make sure because Main Street goes up. Oh, but then circle around because, yeah, so they did.
Yeah, I know. That's why we don't have east, west, and north and south. And sometimes east and west looks like it's going north and south because it does for a while, and then it'll go. Yeah, when my son and I were over in the UK last March, this time last year we headed out to the UK right as COVID was taking place, and yeah, my son got a lesson in map reading, paper maps and all that kind of stuff, and like, well, this isn't north. I was like, I know, but it will be eventually. It kind of like goes up there slow.
When we were living in Germany, and that's how we go. Rusty would have a map in her lap and telling me, and when I go over there now, I think, how the heck did we do it without GPS?
I know. Well, we have better maps, I think, in Europe. I know we do in England. I mean, the first maps that we got when I first came over here. So how can you get anywhere on these things? I mean, the English maps, they put down where the pub and the church is. It's like...
When I was a kid, Scranton's all different ethnic groups, and you never said where do you live. You said what church you go to, and then you know where they were, and you know what pub. Well, not pub, what bar was nearby.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, when I grew up in Worcester, there were 365 pubs in town, and it wasn't a big town. So you could go to a different pub every single night. You wouldn't want to go to some of them, but you could. We had about 10 that we used to rotate around when we were growing up. Well, when we were doing that sort of thing. Yeah, no GPS. Well, GPS can also make for good stories as well.
Yeah.
Like, I've taken some GPS routes that have taken me off road, which have been kind of scary. That was Meg Gilman. Meg, I keep saying you got to come on this show. You got to phone me up and talk to me because I don't know where you are. I think I've got your number, but I'm not sure if it's a landline or a mobile. We're gonna have you on this show because we'll have a riot. So when were you last so Misty wanted to know when were you last in Germany?
Was of course, not last year, but the year before that in the summer is when I took my son and his wife and my daughter, and we traveled all over the Nuremberg area, down to Munich. There were so many places we just loved, and good friends. I mean, really good friends who have been to my home here in the States a number of times. We've been back there to visit them. Just good, really generous, caring friends that we made. And it was funny because I'd walk from my apartment to the garage where my car was when I was working there. And I'd walk past the same people every day, but no one would say good morning. But if I said Morgen, they would look up and say, no, she's way out in the western United States. No, that's not what they said. They'd smile and say good morning. And, but the friends we made were just terrific, and especially the one gentleman who loved to go places, didn't like to drive. I didn't care to drive, so Rusty and he and I would travel all over. We'd go to France, and we went to Vienna.
Right.
And, the distances aren't that great. And
they're not. Although when you live there,
they didn't really care for me to be in the office. I'm not sure why, but my boss would come in and say on Tuesday, say, "Okay, I'll see you next Tuesday." Okay, and then I go, and we go
nice.
Traveling all around. It was truly a fantastic experience. Just fantastic.
Yeah. When did you live there? What year was that?
99.
Okay, so not that long ago.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, I've been to Germany. I like Germany. Running the youth hostels that I did, I got to meet a lot of people from all over the world. And a lot of people who I got on with gave me their phone numbers and addresses and said, oh, if you're ever in blah, 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 look us up. And so a friend of mine who was working with me at the time, we decided to write to these people and look them up and say, hey, we're going to do a tour of Europe. And half of them actually got back to us and said, yes, we'd love to have you. And it was amazing. We based our tour on who said yes.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. Yeah, like crashing, surf couching over Europe. And it was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And they're so generous.
We made a couple of trips to, just Rusty and I, a couple of trips to Ireland because we played Mount Dulcimer and a lot of the music is Celtic music. So we wanted to hear Celtic music. So a fellow I worked with who was from Ireland said, I got this list from my sister. Here's a good list of pubs to go. So we pretty much planned our trip on where the pubs were. I said, where does your sister live? Because we want to, look her up and take her to dinner. Thank her for doing this. He said, oh, she's a nun. I said, a nun? He says, yeah. I said, how did she find all these places? He said, I didn't ask. Anyway, we went over. Oh, and he, by the way, gave me a great idea, and that was cut out a white arrow, with a shank about this wide and this long, and tape it to the windshield so it's almost an irritant, but tape it to the windshield pointing this way.
Oh.
So no matter what you did, you get in a roundabout, and you're ready to leave that roundabout, it's just stay over here.
Yeah.
You're going to make a right-hand turn. Where do I go? Stay over here. It was just the greatest plan. But one night we went into this one pub she recommended. It was called the Baran. And we go in and it's country and Western music. And ask the bartender, he said, yeah, week we have this and this. So we walk outside, trying to decide what to do. A guy walks by with a banjo. I said, where are you headed? He said, oh, there's a up, you go this way and 17 miles there. I said, could we give you a lift? He says, yeah. He gets in the car, he sees the arrow, and he starts laughing. I said, don't laugh, it works. Well, we went and 15 different turns and went into this great pub, local pub. And we were the only non-locals in there. And the men singing was so hearty. It truly would raise the hair in the back of your neck. It was wonderful. And I had a little bit more than my half pint. We came out of the place, and I said, I have no idea our bread and butter. And you could see the town down below. I said, we'll just go. And that is the night I truly came to believe in guardian angels. Because I just kept going and making turns, and all of a sudden, we were at the bed and breakfast. Because usually I always take the little business card, so I'll have the address and can ask somebody. And I failed to do that the one time. But we made it back. But it was such an incredible evening of music. And they'd come over and say, how's your holiday? And just enjoying the music. And it was wonderful, just wonderful. So, yep, had some wonderful experiences all over the world.
That's great. So going back to roundabouts, so I don't know what it's like in Ireland, but I'm assuming it's the same. But this would be an image on a sign that would say the roundabout, and then you'd have like the road names that are coming off. Yeah. And we asked my mum's partner, Peter, why that sign is not joined.
Yeah.
And he said, I have no idea. And he thought about it for about 2 seconds and said, I think it's because the rest of Europe are on the other side of the road. And so by having that break it shows people that you can't go that way, that you have to go the other way. And I was like, that is so smart. I mean, of course that's why they have that break in there. Because it makes you think you have to go that way, right? Ah, dear. Pete, roundabouts are fun. They really are. First time I took my kids on a roundabout when we went to the UK, it was a riot because we went around it about 3 times.
Yeah, well, the first time I ever drove on the wrong side was that
you mean
trip
the left side?
With my daughter when we landed in London, and I rented the car. My hand, of course, it's cheaper to get the standard shift, so I got that. My hand never left the gear shift for the first hour of the trip because I didn't want to go searching for it when I needed to shift gears. Yeah. And my poor wife kept leaning away from the door because she wasn't used to seeing that next to her. She used to see cars. But,
I used to, when I first came over here and started driving over here, people asked me, how are you getting used to it? And I was like, well, after the first couple of times I opened the window instead of changing gear, it was fine. Dear. Well, Pete, thanks for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Pete Abdalla, who is, like I said, one of the nicest guys on the planet. That's not me. I'm going to throw him over that side so you don't get mistaken as to who is whom. This is Pete Abdalla. He is a wonderful guy. If you ever get down to Florida and hear that he's telling, or even if you hear about him telling online, please do check him out because he is a funny guy, and I love his delivery, sense of humor, everything is just like spot on. Pete, thanks so much for being here with everyone. I've enjoyed myself. I hope you've enjoyed yourself as much as I have.
I have really enjoyed myself. Thank you for making it so easy, Simon. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome, mate. And we'll see you all next Friday. Take care, everyone. Bye.